this is going to be fun, Emmett. Welcome to the Leaders Who Care series. This is the special youth series, which I think you're still on the verge of youth, thank goodness. So welcome, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm glad we have this opportunity to really have you share your important story and what the good you're doing with it. So why don't we start first? If you could tell us your full name, how old you are, where you live, um, stuff about your family no one knows, things like that.
So my name is Emmet O'Sullivan. I'm 17 years old. I live in New York City, Midtown Manhattan. I'm a junior at Regis High School. Something in my family, my great aunt was on the Titanic, actually. Um,
Really?
yeah, I'm Irish, so that's a cool fact.
Wow, she was on the Titanic. So the big question is, did she make it?
No, she unfortunately not. She was in like steerage class. So that's
Wow.
just an interesting fact. Yeah.
That's an amazing thing. That's maybe one of the best ones we've ever heard. In an unfortunate way, if you will, but wow. Um, so what's been important to you before we go into everything? What's been important to you? What are your interests? What do you like to do? Things like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, well, I love to play sports with my friends. Playing basketball, get outside as much as I can with my friends. Um, Playing video games, of course, like when I'm at home. That was definitely a big thing during the pandemic, and since then it has trickled down, but has definitely stayed with us. Um,
You
and
watch
yeah,
March Madness?
yeah, I definitely watched some March Madness. I actually went to the Duke game in person
Wow,
at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Which that was a big, super fun experience. Yeah,
that's super cool. No hockey, huh?
no, not a big hockey fan, but I have some friends that are big hockey fans.
All right. Well, then we'll let you off the hook then. That's good. So tell us a little bit about your story now. What's happened, and when were you diagnosed? How old were you?
So in May 2020, in sort of the midst of the pandemic, I was 13 years old and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So there's like a big like misconception. So basically, just to make it very simple, there's type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Those are the main ones. There's some other like more rare types, but type 1 is the genetic one. So basically, when your body starts almost attacking itself and your pancreas doesn't produce insulin like it used to. And then there's type 2, which is like a dietary um issue sort of resulting from like what you're eating, and basically your insulin isn't as it doesn't work as well anymore. So basically I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and I have no family history of the condition. So it was definitely a big shock. I was super thirsty, super tired, just super exhausted. And that was all while it was during online school. So that kind of exacerbated all the symptoms. And I couldn't really get outside much because I was sitting behind a screen all day. And so I didn't even realize how tired and I was exhausted I was feeling because I would just attribute it to being on the screen. So those are some big symptoms. And then like it got sort of worse and worse and worse until my blood sugars level, the measurements in like milligrams. So my blood sugar levels were at 596 milligrams when I was diagnosed. And then when it's over 600, that's when it becomes like fatal. So it was pretty much a near death experience. And just to put into perspective, the normal blood sugar amount is about 70 to 120 milligrams. So I was way above that. So yeah, so I rushed to the emergency room. They ran a test on me. They saw how skinny I'd gone. I hadn't even realized I'd lost like 10 pounds in like a couple weeks.
Oh,
And they ran tests on me and instantly they knew I had type 1 diabetes. So stayed in the hospital a couple days with my mom. And definitely a lot to go through, but it was definitely something I learned from.
yeah, super. I would imagine you were scared, but what's interesting is, she's not the word, but you're in an era that with COVID and everything, everybody thinks it's COVID the minute that something's wrong. So you're probably not rushing to the hospital because you probably just have COVID, which was bad enough at that point. Um, and you're not thinking anything about diabetes, I'm sure, and stuff. So when was the moment that, holy cow, we got to go to the hospital?
So it's funny you say that actually, because Well, yes, everyone was thinking about COVID. I remember when I was feeling so tired and like in like even though it's like a big symptom of diabetes is you're drinking so much water. Like you're super, super thirsty. But like even though that's not a symptom at all of COVID, really, I remember my parents were like, "Oh, you still have COVID. I'm sure it's like some variant or something like that." Because that's what everyone would do. Like I
Of
can't
course,
blame
yeah.
them. And I actually when I was Googling like symptoms like over and over again, and I pretty much diagnosed myself. I told my parents I have type 1 diabetes. I have type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
And they were like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And so when I was actually diagnosed with it, it was like kind of I was like, "Oh, I got you." Like I knew it. But then again, it is like an unfortunate thing to hear because it is like a chronic illness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Plus, it must have been scary. It's scary. It was scary enough during COVID, people, especially elderly people, passing away and whatnot. And then you're looking up information, and based on the data that you talked about, it was truly life threatening.
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
You had scared, aware. I mean, were you like in
In
shock?
definitely in shock, but in at least in the with the doctors, I would always felt like I was in good hands. Like I mean, definitely a lot of it was in shock, so I was kind of numb to like everything that was going on. There was a lot of like mayhem going on, but maybe it's because I was kind of like in a daze because of my blood sugars, but like I'm sure that contributed to it. But I don't think I was super like down or like terrified. I think it just like the shock kind of sort of overpowered all the other emotions, at least for the little while. And then like next thing I knew, it was the next day in the hospital. My blood sugar levels were already down. So that at that point, I had begun to like calm down, and that's when they had doctors explaining things to me. And I remember at first I thought like, oh, I'm never going to be able to eat sugar again, but that's not true. Like I can pretty much eat whatever I want if I give myself the insulin for it, which I have to like inject every pretty much before every meal and at night. But yeah, so I mean, I when I was first diagnosed, I thought it was like gonna completely destroy my life, like all the things I used to do, like play sports stuff. I thought I wouldn't be able to do it again, but that's not true. So it was a little bit scary and definitely shocking.
Yeah, well, I don't even like when people can say that. I can imagine what it's like because I don't know if anybody can really imagine per se what it's like. But I appreciate you talking about the things going through your head. Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to do that? And then looking back, I think almost looking back when you think about it, how scary it is. I mean, I was that close to maybe something really drastic happening.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. So it's almost a silly question. Have you ever thought of writing a book before?
So this I've always wanted to write a children's book, and
Really? Even
I
before?
never I never really had like like something to write it about. So that's when I had like I guess that big like obstacle. Like when you think of a children's book, there's always like that unique obstacle, and I feel like when I having being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, that's what inspired me to write the children's book, Drew Discovers Diabetes, which I'll get into in a second.
Mhm.
But in a way, that was like a of course, since it's such a big like life-changing moment, that's what I like found an opportunity in to like have a unique story.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You actually thought about writing a book, and then, I mean, I'm not necessarily religious, but I'm more spiritual, if you will. And, they say, things happen for a reason, and they give it to people that things happen for a reason to people because God or whoever you want to tell knows they can make it happen. Do you ever feel that?
I do feel that, honestly. And looking back on it, I think while like it is sometimes like going having the condition is sometimes a hassle, but honestly, the person it's made me, how independent and responsible it's made me, I'm honestly in a way happy I was diagnosed with it because I think I've matured a lot more. I've sort of been more in tune with my body and what like my health is in general. So I am grateful for those aspects of it for sure.
Yeah, good for you. How did it start? How did it go about when you said like I am going to write a book, and what was the process?
Hmm. Yeah, so the process basically, first I was just thinking of, I guess, like my characters and stuff like that. And I've always liked dinosaurs. So I was thinking of myself as like a kid wanting to read a book. And so that's when I sort of settled on the idea of writing about dinosaurs. But then I also wanted it to be like not just like a boys book
Right.
type. So I made sure the character, there's no like pronouns. It doesn't really say he or she in the book at all. It's just the character Drew, which is a pretty gender neutral name. Like I've met girls and guys named Drew.
Sure.
So, and so I wanted to make it like that. That was definitely a motivation. So like everyone could read the book. And also, I guess the name Drew is like the alliteration Drew discovers diabetes. That was definitely a cool thing. It rolls off the tongue. So, yeah, I
Did
definitely wanted
you
to
have
make
to, sorry to interrupt, did you have to like actually think about that, or did it just come, or a combination?
I think it kind of just came, but once that came, I was like, oh, that sounds good. We can stick with that. So that was the idea behind the title and everything like about or sort of about the title. And then in terms of like the story, I kind of wanted to mirror my diagnosis and my sort of life. So in the beginning of the book, the dinosaur Drew is playing a sport. Drew's playing leafy chase, which is a sport that all the dinosaurs love to play in a similar way that I love to play sports and I love playing basketball. And then Drew goes to like Mama Stego, and Mama Stego says like, "Oh, you should eat more fruits," because Drew starts feeling much more tired and thirsty as he's playing Leafy Chase, and then so Mama Stego says eat more fruits, but the thing is with type 1 diabetes, which Drew had, but Drew didn't hasn't gotten diagnosed yet. That's not really the answer because it's going to boost your sugar levels and stuff. So then Drew goes to Papa Stego, and Papa Stego has the idea to go to doctor. And these are all sort of similar so similar instances I had with my parents. And then the doctor's office is very supportive, Dino Doc and Dino Nurse, very supportive to the dinosaur. Give him all the tools and support, teach him what the condition is. And there's a page that probably I spent the most time on is like teaching what the condition is, because it's hard to break that into children's language. And like I did have to really think over every word to be concise and simple, but like still effective with my words. So there's a lot there's a the probably that's probably the biggest page in the book in terms of words, and that's like an important page that explains the condition. And then after it goes back to playing Leafy Chase. Drew plays Leafy Chase with friends, great support with the family, great support with the community. It feels like empowered that he's unique, and it's a great, I guess, happy ending.
Way to go, man. That did you enjoy the process? Was it hard?
Yeah, I definitely did enjoy the process. Probably I guess the most difficult part was not actually the writing or anything. It was really just like the finicky details of like publishing on Amazon and
Mhm.
like stuff like that. That was probably a big setback. Like it is difficult to like self-publish a book. Like even and also like the layout on Canva, which I did, and then the illustrations is another point I can talk about. So the illustrations, I've never been the best artist. Like I've never been really great at art. So when I found out over the summer about like AI art, AI illustration, that's what I wanted to like make use of. So I learned a lot how to like prompt imaging in this application called Midjourney. And over the summer, I got sort of really in tune with it, learning how to prompt it. And pretty much all the images are AI imaging with various like prompts. And there's some editing, I guess, and like within Canva, I did some like filters and editing and stuff like that. But that's how the images turned out. And I'm really happy how they turned out. They're really colorful. And I
They
feel like a
are.
lot of kids would love them.
Way to go. And were you ever, you didn't draw before or whatnot? You didn't use AI like that before, so it opened up all these doors,
No,
basically.
I definitely hadn't. I mean, I've drawn, like, I guess, like in school and stuff like that, but never really like found myself like a big like artist and or anything like that. And then in terms of AI, that was like this summer is when it really started like taking off in like AI imaging. So I hadn't really had any experience at all with it before that because it was not really a thing before that. So it's pretty new, and yeah, I guess.
No, it's fantastic. And I was talking to somebody about your book, and we were talking about how you're teaching young kids not just about how to handle diabetes, but you're actually teaching them how to handle any struggle or any
Mhm.
obstacle, and how you can overcome it, and it's not the end of the world. I mean, is that the way you feel also?
Definitely. That's one big motivation in the book. I mean, it's not, I think some people could think it's like only a book for people with type 1 diabetes, but that's not at all the case. This is a book for any kid who has any sort of obstacle. And also it's a book for anyone, like more specific to the condition. It's a book for anyone in the world because they shouldn't have to like know the symptoms when it's too late. Like for me, I knew the symptoms barely in time to pretty much save my life. So if a sort of a dream of the book would be that this is like read in like class, kids can read this in classrooms who don't know the condition, so they can know the symptoms themselves. So if they see a friend have the symptoms, they can tell them before it's too late, or like if they notice themselves they have the symptoms. Because there's a lot of people like me, I didn't have any family history of the condition at all. I didn't know the difference between like type 1 and type 2 diabetes. I didn't know what type 1 diabetes symptoms are like, and like I don't blame myself. Like that's not like a thing. Like people don't really know that. You don't know that, especially as a kid. So I think that's definitely a dream that everyone, not just people with type 1 diabetes, has like the knowledge of the condition and the symptoms so they can catch it.
Well, it's a great thing. Men in general, um, I don't know if they're just trying to be tough or whatnot, have been known forever to go to the doctor at the latest moment. I don't know if that's
Mhm.
because we're supposed to be tough for, men don't eat quiche or whatever stupid thing. That way, there's no crying in baseball, all sorts of stuff like that. So I think it's great that it's teaching that too, and you're educating that, it's okay to and better go to the doctor. It's better safe than sorry type of scenario, right?
Definitely, 100%, 100% agree with that. Yeah.
And you got the perfect story to share that. Plus I love the names, Papa and Mama Stego and all that stuff. Tell us about, by the way, where it's located. The story is in where?
Yeah, so the story is located in DinoYork, sort of inspiration. I mean, the illustrations look nothing like New York City, but it's kind of like the dino world, where it's beautiful trees. I mean, if you look at the imaging, I would want to live there. It's really, really nice, with like beautiful fruits and stuff like that. But I guess the inspiration would be, I mean, growing up in New York myself, that's been like a really important part of who I am,
Mhm.
the city itself. So that's why I chose to put it DinoYork.
Well, Barney, eat your heart out, right? Do you know who Barney is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. I remember him, so eat your heart out on that. Can you share a little bit about maybe experiences and impact you've seen and heard from other kids, from some of the medical people you've interacted with and whatnot about the book and how
Mhm.
it's changed your life and
Yeah,
they see it maybe changing other people's lives?
100%. So one really cool interaction was I heard from someone who saw the book and just saw it as like they saw Drew Discovers Diabetes, but they thought it was like, okay, it's a cool dinosaur book. That's pretty much how they like labeled it. And they had like a friend or a neighbor, I'm not sure which one, that the person knew that their like daughter really liked dinosaurs. And they're like, oh, it's so cool. Like I should like give them this book so then they could read a cool book about dinosaurs and stuff. And what that person hadn't realized is when he had given the book, that daughter had type 1 diabetes, and he didn't even know that when he gave the book about dinosaurs. And the parents had not told the kid yet. So, and because the kid was only like 4 years old, and it's kind of hard to like, I guess, explain that. So the parents were super grateful because they used the book as an opportunity to
Yeah.
teach the kid about the condition. So while the person thought it was only a gesture of like, oh, here's a cool book to read about dinosaurs, I guess he didn't realize it, but the kid could learn what his own or what her own condition was, and it was super helpful to the parents who had like been worried about how they're going to explain this to their kid. And I think that's like that alone has made me like so happy that I've written the book.
Yeah, you should be proud of that because there's a saying, even if you only help one person, it's worth it.
Mhm.
But I think you're going to help a whole lot more than one person in this respect. I had a mentor once a long time ago. He told me brilliance is simple, and he was basically talking like you're talking. It doesn't have to be complicated to have a brilliant um, solution or a brilliant recommendation or a brilliant education of something. And there's other people that have said if you can't explain it that a kid understands it, then it's too complicated for anybody.
Mhm.
So I think you've achieved that too. And how has the experience and the interest in it changed you in it in any way? Your ideas of things in the world of school, friends, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely been more passionate about the disease. That's probably like the first step. I mean, like there's so many like faults with the disease. Like I know like 1 in 4 people ration their insulin because they can't afford insulin prices. So like insulin prices and like that healthcare is like a whole different sort of section of the disease that like I guess the book doesn't directly address. But things like that. and how like there's thousands and thousands of people who are dying without even being diagnosed with a condition. They don't even know they have like diabetes, and they're dying because they don't have access to healthcare and stuff like that. So I think definitely a bigger passion in healthcare access is probably the most direct sort of, I guess, benefit that I've received from after writing the book.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm wondering what's next. We talked a little bit about having Dino Boston, Dino LA, Dino whatever, and I don't think it's that crazy an idea actually. And also, what's next? Does the juvenile diabetes associations or whatnot, are they using it? Is there a way of that they schools want to get it out? What's next?
Yeah, so right now all the proceeds of the ebook are getting donated to Diabetes Research Institute Foundation, and that's completely dedicated to finding a cure for the condition. Because there's not a cure yet, but there's really promising research like in cell therapies and stuff like that that do show a lot of hope for a cure. So I feel that like while advocacy is super important, like I think my book does a great job in the advocacy of the condition, and I think that's a really important thing to do. That's what the book does, and then the proceeds go to direct research and the science behind it. So I think it's kind of cool because that like sort of attacks both the sort of parts of the condition. Um, and then in terms of what's next, yeah, like you mentioned it, like schools, that's really hope. Like if I could get the book into like schools or like nurses' offices, because that's another big issue. Like kids at schools who have the condition, and like sometimes their nurses won't really know much about like the condition, or like the kids might be the only kids in school with the condition. Like for me, like I'm the only kid in my school of like 500 that I know of with type 1 diabetes. So like I'm not sure if the nurse would, I'm not like, I don't know if the nurse would know a lot about the condition because she hasn't had much to experience with it. So that's definitely a thing I'm looking into, getting into nurse officer schools, or maybe even writing another book. I'm not sure yet exactly what you're saying about like whether it be like Dino Boston or some new city. That's definitely a fun idea. But yeah, that could definitely be a thing as well.
You can Dino Vienna, Dino London, different languages. You know,
Yeah.
kids and people are more the same than they are different around the world, and so I think there's an opportunity there. Have you had any knowledge or awareness or contact by potentially any, not just celebrities, but any people out there, adults that have had it and maybe they get tied in?
Not as much like direct like that so far. Uh, Especially since I think it's just come out like recently, and I'm just like sort of launching out the paperback version of it now because it was so originally it was on the ebook, which basically I decided to do the ebook first because it was the cheapest I could put it is $1.99 ebook, and then with a paperback, the cheapest you could put it is $7. So I wanted to have like the cheapest, most accessible option. And with like an ebook, you can access it from like pretty much all over the world. Some Amazon marketplaces don't like ship to like certain places and like if you have the paperback. So that's
Right.
why I chose to do the ebook, um, which is only $1.99, and still all the proceeds are going to Diabetes Research Institute Foundation. But that was the reason why I wanted to do the ebook. But now that I have the paperback rolling out, that's when I think I can put into action a lot of more things like in person, like in schools or like with people reaching out and stuff like that.
You may want to Google, celebrities with diabetes or whatnot and see
Yeah,
what's out there. So, well, I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope, right?
I am. I am. Thank you very much.
No, you should be because you are making a difference and it'll go well beyond diabetes. And so we're proud of you. We're excited to have you on. You deserve to be on a Leaders Who Care series because you really do. So thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for being who you are. And we look forward to more big things from you.
Thank you so much.